You're listening to LVB Podcast Show with your friend, advocate, and host, Alvaro.
Hi and welcome to LVB Show. My name is Alvaro and I'm very happy to be with you tonight. First of all, I want to say thank you for people listening to the show from the United States. We have listeners in Canada. We have listeners in Australia, in Europe, in Latin America, in Asia, of course, in Africa. So thank you for listening. It's been over 11 years doing the show. It's unbelievable. Remember, you can listen to the show on Apple Podcast, on Anchor, on Spotify. And if you want to be on the show, if you have an interesting story to tell about low vision, blindness, living with low vision, living with blindness, etc., you can email me at lowvisionbureau@gmail.com. Now, this interview is recorded in a different way. I was recording on Zoom, but the logistics for my guest today and for me were such that we are doing this in a different way, but it's working out pretty well. So who is our guest tonight? Tonight we're interviewing LILIAN HICEL. She's a painter, she's a plastic artist, and she's the creator of Blindism. She's from Mexico originally, and she has a lot to say, of course. LILIAN, thank you for being with us tonight.
No, thank you. On the contrary, thank you for having me as your guest. I really appreciate it.
No problem. And the first question that comes to mind is, can you tell us briefly about your life?
Briefly about my life. Well, my life has been up and downs. My daughter and I will live in another country because we're hiding from my ex-husband. But that hasn't stopped me from painting and keep caring for the people. I love painting and I love helping people. And I always think that everything you do has to have a purpose. And the purpose of my paintings is to bring art to the blind people, to make them enjoy and live a painting through a through a language of textures that I created. So that's the goal of my life, to paint for blind people and give them joy.
So, LILIAN, that is a beautiful way of living life. That's for sure. A great purpose for our listeners. And you're talking about this thing that you created, this blindism. Can you define it a little bit more for our listeners?
Blindism, it's a language of textures where every texture has a meaning. So you can live the painting. Like I have the texture for pain. Pain is like rose thorns. So when you touch the texture, it hurts you. So that your body feels the pain. And the texture of, I have 36 textures. The texture of happiness feels like silk. So when you touch it, it's a very nice soothing sensation in your body. So people want to keep touching it. So that's how I represent happiness. I have anger. Anger is like little tiny needles or like tiny rose thorns that don't get to hurt like pain, but they really bug you. So because when I get angry, I feel like needles or pine needles in my back and spine. So that's how I represent anger. I have fear, which is like big sand, because it kind of hurts you and feels uncomfortable. So it's a strange thing. So I have, like, for example, the positive feelings. I have happiness, love, which is very soft, but also has little thorns, because pain is happiness. Love is happiness and pain. I have success, which I represent like a little hair, because that's how success is. It's just a very fine line that you might be successful already, but you keep looking for something better.
Right.
And then you let pass the success, or you think that you made it because you're very successful, but it's very fine that you can go to ruin just if you get success in your head. I have trust. Trust is a texture like nearly as nice as happiness, but not so smooth. I have proudly moments, hope, passion, security, dreams, and I have peace, patience, empathy, honesty, loyalty, simplicity, yearning. And I have all the opposites to that. So when blind people touch them, I have a key. I have a code with the meaning. So the blind people touch the texture, they read in Braille what it means. So some are self-explanatory when you touch them. And when you go to the painting and you start touching it, if I tell you there's a child crying, you will know, okay, it's crying because he's worried, he's happy, or what. But when you start touching it, and if you feel the pain, you know that that child is crying because he has fear, he has pain, he has anger, whatever. So your body experiments the sensations. That's why I say you live and see my paintings through the texture. So that's what is blindism. And also all my paintings are like raised up, so you can feel the eyebrows, the teeth, the wrinkles, the hairs, the folding of a blouse. So you see it through your hands and you leave the emotion through your hands. I have photos of a lady that she's touching the painting of a child that is a victim of child abuse, which is my daughter. And it is called Why Me? And when she started touching the painting, she asked me, "Are these the feelings of the girl?" I said, "Yes." And she started crying. And she said, poor girl, poor girl. And just by touching it, and when you see that photo of her with her eyes totally red and crying, for me, it's like I did my job. I created conscious of what it's like to be a child from abuse, psychological, sexual, physical, whatever. And that's what I wanted for people to create conscious about child abuse. So when I see that my paintings tell the message, for me it's the best. And when a blind person tells me that they like to see it or they like better this painting than the other one, that moment I say, I can die today, and it was worth it. So it's blindism. It's a group of textures that each one represents an emotion, a moral value, or a moment in life. That's what it is.
That's very powerful, Lilian. And I have to say, it's fascinating. I have a follow up, and is when it all began. What year are we talking about?
I started painting like this in 2002, 2003, because I used to paint, and I'm a tactile person, so I touch my paintings. I touch everything to feel it. And my paintings wouldn't tell me anything. My drawings wouldn't tell me anything. That's why I started drawing, because it wouldn't tell me anything. So I thought, if I cannot see them, blind people cannot see them. So I started creating the textures. At the beginning, I had only happiness and pain. And I did it in clay, using different sands, different materials, until I found the pain. And it was in 2002, 2003 when I started doing it. And that's how, and it has grown, the amount of texture has grown according to people, because people said, how do you represent empathy? How do you represent honesty? How do you represent healing? So then I go and start thinking and start checking textures that will give me that sensation. And that's how it has happened. It's been 20 years. It's been a long work to find a texture or to create a texture that makes you feel the emotion I want you to feel.
Do you teach your art? Do you teach blindism to sighted and blind people?
I have started teaching it. Unfortunately, most of the famous painters or the not famous painters that they've been painting for years. They're not interested to paint for blind people because they say that there's no market for that. But I started with teenagers, and teenagers that they still have the dream of helping or doing something or leaving a footprint in their life. And I have taught, I think it's like 30 kids that they already learn how to paint blindism. So I'm very proud. Maybe in October, we're going to have the first blindism group art exhibition
Oh, wow.
in the States because I want the people to know that it's worth it and to see that the kids, because right now the kids are, most of the kids, 90% of the kids are entitled. They feel they deserve everything. Well, this group of kids that I taught, they're different. They want blind people to see. They want to spread the art to blind people. So they're special kids. They study art, and they were very excited when I was teaching them about the blindism. They were like, okay, I want this. I want them to feel this. I want them that. So I have a group like 20, 25 of them. And I have taught to 3 different kids, little kids like 7 and 8 years old. There's a group with kids with a behavior problem. And I told the teacher that a lot of times kids with behavior problem, they have problems because they carry a lot of weight. There's a big baggage that they're carrying. And I said, but they don't know how to say it. So she said, okay, you can work with my kids. And I taught them what I do. I taught them the meaning of the paintings. And I told them, this is how you can express what you feel. This is how you can get out what you feel. And when we start painting, they were painting hang people, killing people, very depressive things. But as they keep learning their style, they were like, can I change my painting? Can I put this? And they change pain for hope. They change anger for dreams. So I have 3 little students that it's amazing what they've done and how they learn to use the textures to express what they feel. So yes, I
It's a
have
great,
started.
I believe, Lillian, is a great way of communication.
Yeah, it is, because not everybody knows how to communicate.
Right.
I am very harsh. When you hear me talking in a normal conversation, people think I'm rude or very forward, because I tell the things just the way they are. Good or bad, I will tell you what I think. And sometimes people get offended and people think, oh, well, she's an iceberg. I have people call me an iceberg because I'm just like blunt. But when they see my paintings, they're like, you're very sensitive. I cannot tell those things. Like when I had a partner, a love partner, they would say, Lilian, do you love me? I would say, of course, I'm here with you, no? For me, it was very hard to say it. For me, the words to say, I love you, I miss you, were like, okay, I'm here with you. Do you miss me? Well, I'm calling you, aren't I? So I'm not good with words, but with my paintings, I can tell you how I feel. I can tell you a message. I want to tell you how things suffer. Kids abuse, kids suffer, how all people suffer. So it's a good way to communicate through textures, to say why you cannot say with words. And in the case of the kids that they're being abused and they cannot tell what's happening, they cannot tell you that they're so aggressive because they're angry, they're full of fear. They use the paintings. Like with these kids, it was amazing. And the teacher saw all the process and she was like, I'm amazed how they got it immediately and they touched the textures and they relate. At the beginning, they used the textures of the feelings they knew, like anger, fear, pain, desperation, and then they changed them for the feelings that they want, that they didn't know love, they didn't know hope. So it's pretty good for kids like that. It's really amazing.
Has been over 20 years. where have your paintings gone to? In other words, have you had them exhibited in, I don't know, Europe, the US, Latin America?
Well,
Can you tell us a little?
I have had 102 exhibitions. Some have been solo, some have been in groups. They've been at the Carousel du Louvre, at the Louvre Museum. It has a gallery called the Carousel. I exhibited there. They've been at the Museum of the Peace in Italy. They've been at the Jewish Museum in New Jersey. They've been at the Jewish House in Mexico. They've been in several museums. They've been at the Art Museum in Izmir in Turkey. They've been, imagine 102 places where it's been from the Sorbonne, the University of Huelva, the House of Colón in Huelva in Spain. So they've been in different places, different museums, different schools, different libraries, and different galleries, 102 in different parts of the world.
If someone from an art gallery, from a museum, wants your paintings, wants you to talk there, what should they do to reach out to you and get it done?
Well, most of, like 100 art exhibitions that I have had, they've been through Facebook. They reach